Hello, I'm Callee.
And I'm Ellie Marmie. And this is Media for Change, a television show produced by students in the Department of Communication and Media at UNI. We believe that media can be a powerful force for bringing about positive change and innovation into our world.
In 2022, the American College Health Association found that about 77% of students experience some kind of psychological distress, either moderate or severe. 54% experienced loneliness, and 30% had exhibited a suicidal behavior.
Locally, Iowa State University backs this study up in an article written and updated yearly by the Psycho and Health Facility, stating that 80% of students have experienced a negative impact on their mental health, with only 20% reporting that their mental health has significantly worsened.
The economy's spending on mental health services rose by 53% from March 2020 to August 2022 among people with employer-provided insurance, according to the researchers from the RAND Corporation and Castle Health.
Although mental health services have grown in the U.S., not everybody uses the services. Instead, they find a way to exercise their mind by pursuing their creative passions.
Today, we will be exploring the impact of mental health on the college-age generation and the ways in which some have chosen to face this challenge.
Our first segment discusses mental health among men, often a hidden demographic. Among college-age men, this is often a taboo subject. We learned some surprising statistics as well as options available to men.
A recent study by the American College Health Association revealed male college students are far less likely to report and seek help for mental health problems compared to female students. The study reports that 1 out of every 2 men felt overwhelming anxiety. 1 out of 3 felt so depressed that it was difficult to function. 1 out of 10 have considered suicide. Mental Health America reports that men are less likely to seek any sort of help or guidance for depression, substance abuse, or stressful life events. This is attributed to the traditional stereotypes of masculinity, including the stigma associated with male mental health issues.
For single guys, I think that in our different friend groups or consider tradition to just be a bit more reserved, to not express some concerns that we may have.
Men also have a tendency to downplay any concerning symptoms, consistently reporting lower depression rates. Current research shows male students are more likely to participate in unhealthy coping mechanisms rather than pursue care. National Institutes of Health research shows that males are under the impression that they are expected to fix things themselves. Students may find themselves trying to balance the expectations of academic workload, finances, job, lack of sleep, and social media. In a recent survey, 31% of local male college students report school was their major stressor, followed by personal life at 28%.
I think it's gotten better, which is a good thing, but there's still some stigma around, I would say mostly from other guys, maybe thinking they're not manly enough.
Some self-care tips include getting regular exercise, eating healthy regular meals and staying hydrated, making sleep a priority, trying a relaxing activity, keeping a positive outlook, and staying connected with family and friends.
The biggest thing I do to take care of my mental health is a spiritual life, and be mindful of who I am. Reminds me to be grateful for the blessings that I have.
Going on walks, you cannot emphasize enough how much that does for mental health.
Research stresses the importance of providing literacy to college males regarding the harmful effects of poor mental health on both the students' physical health and their behaviors. A couple of ways to encourage male students to seek help is to provide anonymous treatment options, offer remote or virtual care, and attempt to destigmatize male student mental health. In fact, many colleges and universities house wellness centers, counseling centers, and/or health services that are staffed 24 hours a day. These centers are even able to provide medication if needed. Increasing mental health literacy in this vulnerable population will play a major role in the number of students seeking mental health care.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that the big homie needs help too. You can't just rebound from everything. I know you've been grinding.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
But how long will you fight solo? I wonder if you know that we can get help. I wonder why we waited so long. wondering anymore. Love your mind. Let's see how far we can go.
Finding a community that allows somebody to freely express who they are and how they are feeling plays an important role in mental health, whether that be friends, family, or even a local organization.
Our next segment features the Three House and their efforts to create a welcoming and inclusive space for all through the concept of radical hospitality.
We hope Three House is for people is a space to gather and a space to grow. And so it's a place to find your community and to be in community with others, to learn from them, to make friends, to experience life differently. We have a really diverse group of students that participates, and diverse in every sense of the word and the world. So students from all over the world, students from all walks of life, and students from everywhere in the country too that participate. And so we like to have a lot of conversations where we get to learn from each other.
I'm a part of the Kappa Sigma fraternity, and we have people there who find mental health pretty challenging, and Dave has always been a ear to listen to, or someone just to be there for, just in general. Even if it's just to go have a chat about your career, he'll be there for you.
There's a sociology term called third places, or it's a concept, where the first and second place, we all have, our first place maybe is where we live. When we're at campus, it could be the apartments or the dorms. Second place is where we go to school or work, typically. The third place is where we go to be with friends when we're celebrating, when we're grieving, when we're needing something.
We also have, it's back here on the shelf, a whole list of resources as far as housing resources, again, more food insecurity sort of resources, as well as mental health resources. So different clinics in the area for mental health counselors that are LGBTQ affirming, as well as other clinics to go to for whatever your needs are.
It's always pretty warm, welcoming, and an open human-to-human conversation.
One of the biggest things that students want, that people want, is to be heard, to be listened to. And so we have a project that we do, and I think I mentioned it to you. We have a listening post project. We're on campus every Thursday in Mock Reunion from 11:30 to 1:30. And we just have a little display set up telling who we are. We have, I don't have one with me, we have little fidgets. And all we want you to do is stop and say hi. Just check in, tell us about your day, whether you're going to class, coming from class, just going to get something to lunch, had a really hard conversation and you need to process it, whatever. We're here to hear you, and we want to be supportive, and that's just one of the ways we're showing our radical hospitality.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. But then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
How does performance art carry mental health onto the stage? Between performers, directors, and crew members alike, the theater specializes in depicting raw emotions to deliver stories that last a lifetime. For a discussion of the ways in which theater can play a role, we turn to Katie Zank and Addie Buseman, featuring a special guest who is an expert in this conversation. But first, after this message.
If I could be you, and you could be me, for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Media for Change. I'm Addie.
And I'm Katie. Theater, like other forms of art, is sometimes used as a form of therapy. To discuss the implications of this, we have with us UNI Assistant Professor for Theater and Acting, Catherine Hahn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So many people don't realize this, but theater can actually be a unique therapeutic experience for people. Can you elaborate on this?
So the ancient Greeks actually used the theater as a tool to help people process difficult feelings, emotions, situations in a safe space. And so what you would do in ancient Greece is you'd go to the theater, you'd watch these incredible tragedies, and you'd get to purge all of that pity and fear and, purge all those other emotions. They called this experience catharsis. And then you'd be able to think about those things without actually having to experience them yourself. And so when you'd see, Oedipus the king make terrible mistakes in his life, you could feel that pity and fear for him and have that therapeutic experience without having to go through what he went through. And so it was a safe way for the Greeks to experience these things without actually having to experience it. And so we use that today. If you see, we just produced Heathers the musical here at Theater UNI. And the things that happen in the lives of those characters are things that I don't think any of us would wish on ourselves or our friends. But when we go and we see these stories played out on stage, we can think about them, we can reflect on them, we can think about, what might I want to do differently in my life so we can avoid their tragic fate.
That's perfect. I was going to say that reminds me of Dear Evan Hansen. I feel like a lot of people relate to that musical too.
Yeah.
So seeing as theater can be seen as a form of therapeutic for the audience, would you say that performances could also be therapeutic for actors as well, or not so much?
I think many actors would describe the experience as being similar in terms of getting out some of those emotions that might not be appropriate to share in everyday life. But we're very careful to make sure that we're not treating acting classes or rehearsal processes as a substitute for going to see a counselor or a therapist. There are many similar tools that we use. We do a lot of sensory awareness, mindfulness practice. We're big into consent-based and trauma-informed practices, so we can teach people how to collaborate with others in a safe and healthy way. But there's a huge distinction between the work that someone would do in therapy and the work they do in acting class. In therapy, you're working through your own issues. You're very much delving into your own memories, your own experiences, and the goal is to really reflect on the real things from your real life. In acting class, you might feel some real emotions, but it should be in the imaginary circumstances of the character so that you keep that healthy separation between this is me as the character going through what they are going through in their circumstances, but this is separate from me in my real life. So I could, if we were in a scene together, I could scream at you and say that I hate you and I'm gonna kill you. But we know as actors that even though I might be feeling a real emotion in the circumstances of the play, you're safe, right? And so it's important to teach actors to keep that separation, that it is you up there saying those things and feeling those feelings, but it's you in the circumstances of the play, and that's all imaginary and separate from real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. So our show is focused around college students and their mental health. So how can theater help college students kind of understand and reflect on their own emotions?
Well, first of all, college students can do what the Greeks did, and they can go see theater. If they consider it part of their civic duty to go and watch these stories played out on stage, then they can think about those things without having to experience them themselves first. And so we have 4 shows a year here at UNI, and there's other theaters in the community and around the state and around the country, of course, where people can go see theater and not just have that experience, but have it in a room full of other people who are also laughing and crying and thinking about those questions that are raised. There are forms of drama therapy that some organizations will use to kind of take some of the tools that we use in theater and apply it directly to therapy, so that through role playing or through improvisation, people can practice. There's this thing called forum theater that was developed by Augusto Boal in South America in the 20th century, and it was used to help communities work out the issues that were plaguing them, but in rehearsal. They kind of called it rehearsal for life. They would talk about some of the things that they were facing in real life. They'd play them out in improvised scenes, and then they would have some ideas about how they might be able to take that into their real life. And therapists, drama therapists particularly, use these techniques in therapy today.
Media for Change will be right back after this short break.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that the big homie needs help too. You can't just rebound from everything. I know you've been grinding.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
But how long will you fight solo? I wonder if you know that we can get help. I wonder why we waited so long. I'm not wondering anymore. Love, your mind. Let's see how far we can go.
So, as we were talking about method acting, do you have any experience in method acting, or have any of your students done method acting and have seen side effects for their mental health for it?
I would say when it comes to the original method, that was really along the lines of the original training that I received in the early 2000s. More and more the industry is moving away from that and finding techniques to keep that separation for students so that they're really focusing on the imaginary life and what they're responding to in the moment and not using their real life in it. I don't teach that style anymore. I teach about it. I want students to know that it exists and that, kind of proceed at your own risk. But I don't teach it anymore. And part of the reason I don't teach it is because I did have some negative experiences as a student where I would get so caught up, maybe even overwhelmed with emotion when I was tapping into a real memory. Usually it would be like, unfortunately, most of the most effective memories to use are the ones that are still kind of raw. That's a sign of unhealed trauma. And if it's unhealed trauma, you really shouldn't be picking at that scab, right? You need to let that heal before it's safe to work with. But a lot of times when it's healed, then it doesn't necessarily have the same kind of juice, the same kind of power that it did before. And so it was a risky process, and I had some bad experiences. But the silver lining of that is that I'm able to share that with my students and say, hey, I've tried this for myself. This was my experience. You don't have to do what I did. There are other more healthy and sustainable ways.
Nice. And could you sort of explain, you brought up there's other techniques that are being used now to sort of stay away from that. Could you go into more detail and explain what they are?
Yeah, so I am in the middle of certification in the Michael Chekhov acting technique. He was also a student of Stanislavski's, the Russian acting teacher that I mentioned earlier. But he put so much of his focus on the imagination of the actor, and he said you shouldn't have to work with your real experiences because that can limit you. Mm-hmm. And if you are going to play a serial killer, for instance, you shouldn't have to have experiences similar to that of a serial killer. You should be able to strengthen your imagination so much that you can keep that separation and be very much in control of this is what I'm doing as this character, but it's not at all me as the actor. One of the parts of the Michael Chekhov technique that I really like, and that my students have often responded really well to, is this idea of crafting the character, like you pretend to mold the character out of clay or something, and then they step into the character and walk around so they have a physical and imaginative way of crossing the threshold into the work so that they are able to step in and step out of character, quite literally.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about such an important topic. And Media for Change will be right back after this short break.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome back to Media for Change. Different forms of art not only soothes the mind of the viewer, but soothes the mind of the artists themselves. It is a common theme that many artists often create their best work when they are emotionally at their lowest. In our last segment, Morgan Drilling, a local artist, reveals how she draws on mental health as an inspiration for her artwork.
My name is Morgan Drilling. I'm an artist and an art education major. So I started very young, playing with just natural things, and like other artists, I just kept with it. I'd say when I'm painting, I'm mostly thinking about surrealism and expressionism. A lot of my artwork is based on conveying the human experience. And I like to have my brush strokes visible. I think that's a really important part of mark making and a big part of expressionism. I think mental health and art really play off of each other. I know when I first graduated high school and moved out of my parents' house for the first time, that was a really big transition. That was kind of a part in my life at the very beginning where I got, pretty depressed. But I really feel like that's where my art started to gain more meaning. I think the things you go through really show themselves in your art, especially with color. The inspiration for that book is based on all of my memories from childbirth up to here that I can remember. And it kind of goes into all of the big events, I want to say, that have impacted my mental health the most, whether that's going through puberty like we all experience, or thinking about sexuality and things like that really play a big part on your mental state. In this page here, I was really thinking about the feeling of confusion. The memory that I associated with it is falling into a lake. I did that when I was younger, and it was really scary. And at this point in my life, things were really confusing and really nervous, and that really made me very anxious, which is what this page is depicting. It's very sticky, and it's easy to get caught up in all of everything that's going on in your life, but I decided to leave the last page of the book pretty open-ended because no one's journey is ever done, and I want it to kind of inspire hope almost.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
This has been Media for Change. Thank you to everyone who tuned into our show. Mental health is an ongoing challenge that deserves our attention. There are many stories to be told and many stories to be heard.
We have seen today that mental health affects many aspects of people's lives. Although this challenge comes with a lot of heartache, it can inspire people to create something special.
If you or anyone you know is struggling, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is 988 and the Mental Health Hotline is 866-903-3787.
Thank you again, and remember,
you are important.